The words hung in the air between us like poison. "You're just dead weight now, Sarah." My husband of 15 years didn't even look me in the eye when he said it, just stared at the pile of bills spread across our kitchen table. 22 years of love, sacrifice, and building a life together, reduced to those 5 cruel words on the day I lost my job. I stood frozen in our kitchen, my termination letter still clutched in my hand, the ink barely dry. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me with a rusty spoon. I'd spent my entire career at Meridian Publishing, working my way up from assistant editor to senior content director over 17 years. But a corporate merger had eliminated my entire department without warning. At 49 years old, I was suddenly unemployed for the first time since college. Before we dive in, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Drop it in the comments. I wonder if betrayal feels the same no matter where or when you're hearing this story. The pain certainly transcends geography. As I was saying, I stood in that kitchen, my world collapsing, needing my husband's support more than ever. Did you even try to negotiate? To fight for your position? James demanded, finally looking up at me. His eyes were cold, calculating. I didn't recognize the man sitting at our table. The decision came from corporate. There was nothing. There's always something, Sarah. You just didn't try hard enough. He cut me off, shuffling through the bills again. We have the mortgage, car payments, and now your student loans from that master's degree that apparently wasn't worth the paper it's printed on. The master's degree I'd earned while working full-time and raising our daughter. The degree I'd pursued at his insistence because he said it would make us both proud. The degree I was still paying off because I'd insisted he finish his MBA first, using our savings for his education rather than mine. "I'll find something else," I said, my voice sounding smaller than I intended. "I have contacts, references. My portfolio is strong. At your age." James scoffed. "In this economy? Be realistic." At my age. The word stung worse than the deadweight comment. I was only 3 years older than him, but suddenly he was acting like I was past my expiration date. "I supported you when you switched firms and took that pay cut 5 years ago," I reminded him quietly. "That was an investment in our future. This is just failure." I felt my throat tighten. The tears were coming, and I refused to let him see them. I walked out of the kitchen, his words following me like daggers in my back. Dead weight. The phrase kept repeating in my mind as I climbed the stairs to our bedroom. Our daughter Madison's room was empty now. She was in her 2nd year at UCLA. I passed by her door and remembered how I'd been the one to drive her to school every morning, attend every parent-teacher conference, help with every science project and college application. I'd done it gladly, even as I worked 50-hour weeks at Meridian. James had always been too busy with his own career, but now apparently I was the dead weight. I sat on the edge of our bed and finally allowed the tears to fall. 17 years at Meridian, gone in a 15-minute meeting. A pink slip and a pitiful severance package that wouldn't even cover 3 months of our expenses. And now my husband, the man who had promised to love me in good times and bad, was looking at me like I was a burden he'd never signed up for. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, Lena. "How did it go? Did you tell him?" I stared at her message, unsure how to respond. Lena had been warning me for years that James took advantage of me. I'd always defended him, explaining that his demanding job as a financial advisor simply required more of his attention. Now, her concerns echoed in my head alongside his cruel dismissal. "He called me dead weight," I finally typed back. Lena's response was immediate. "I'm coming over. Pack a bag." "No," I replied quickly. "I need time to think." The truth was, I needed to prove him wrong. The humiliation of being cast aside by both my company and my husband in the same day burned through my sadness, igniting something else, something that felt dangerously like determination. I opened my laptop and began searching for jobs. sending my resume to every publishing and content creation company within a 50-mile radius. The rejection emails started arriving almost immediately. We're seeking candidates with more diverse experience. While your qualifications are impressive, we've decided to pursue applicants with more relevant skills. We've filled the position with someone who better fits our company culture. All polite ways of saying I was too old, too specialized, too expensive. By midnight, I'd applied to 47 positions. James never came upstairs. I heard him watching TV downstairs, then the familiar sound of the liquor cabinet opening. He'd be asleep on the couch by now. Part of me was relieved. I couldn't bear to share a bed with him after what he'd said. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, James's words replaying in my mind. Dead weight. After everything I'd sacrificed for our family. After all the times I'd put his career before mine, his dreams before my own. After I'd spent the last 2 decades being the primary parent to our daughter, while also being the steady, reliable income that had allowed him to take risks in his career. When the first light of morning crept through our bedroom window, I had a moment of clarity, so profound it felt like a physical sensation. James had called me dead weight because that's how he saw me, as a means to an end. My value to him was tied to my paycheck, my ability to manage our home, my usefulness in his life equation. I slipped out of bed and went to the small home office I shared with James. His desk was immaculate, as always. Mine was cluttered with projects I'd brought home from Meridian over the years. Former projects, I reminded myself bitterly. I opened his desk drawer, looking for a spare notebook, and found something else instead. A stack of credit card statements. Statements I'd never seen before, from accounts I didn't know existed. I pulled them out, my hands trembling slightly. James and I had always managed our finances together, or so I thought. The statements revealed over $87,000 in debt across 3 different cards. Charges for expensive restaurants I'd never been to. Hotel stays in cities he'd claimed were just day trips for work. Gifts from jewelry stores and high-end boutiques that had never made their way to me. The most recent statement was dated just 2 weeks ago. A $600 dinner at a restaurant I'd been wanting to try for years, followed by a $420 charge at a hotel downtown. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. This wasn't just debt. This was betrayal on a level I couldn't process at 6 a.m. after a sleepless night. I carefully returned the statements to his drawer, my mind racing. No wonder he'd reacted so strongly to my job loss. He wasn't just worried about our usual expenses. He was terrified I'd discover his secret financial life, and whatever else that money trail might reveal. I went to the bathroom and showered, letting the hot water wash away my tears. When I emerged, I had a plan forming, not just to find a new job, but to reclaim my self-worth and independence. James had called me dead weight. Fine. I'd show him just how much I'd been carrying all these years. I dressed carefully in my favorite charcoal gray suit, the one I'd worn to my last 3 promotions at Meridian. Then, instead of continuing my futile job search, I opened a new document on my laptop and began to write. For years, authors at Meridian had asked me to freelance, to help them polish their manuscripts or develop their ideas on the side. I'd always declined, citing my commitment to the company. What a fool I'd been, placing my loyalty in a corporation that had discarded me without a second thought. Now, I listed every contact I had in the publishing world, every author whose work I'd improved, every agent who'd thanked me for making their clients' books better. By the time James came upstairs to get ready for work, I had 15 names on my list, potential clients who might value my expertise enough to pay for it. "You're up early," he said, his tone cautious. The contempt from last night had faded, replaced by what appeared to be guilt. Not for what he'd said, I suspected, but for what I might have discovered while he slept. "I have a lot to do today," I replied, my voice steady and professional, as if I were speaking to a difficult author rather than my husband. "Sarah, about last night, I was stressed. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I interrupted. But that's not important right now. What's important is that I have a plan. A job prospect. He looked relieved, already calculating how my potential income could sustain his secret spending. Something better, I said, closing my laptop. I'm going to start my own editorial consulting business. James laughed. Not a chuckle, but a full, dismissive laugh that made my skin burn with humiliation and rage. With what startup capital? With what clients? Be serious, Sarah. You need to focus on finding a real job. I stood, gathering my laptop and purse. I have a lunch meeting with Diane Morrow. That got his attention. Diane was a best-selling thriller author whose books had been adapted into a popular streaming series. I'd edited 3 of her novels during my time at Meridian. What? Why? Because she's been asking me to work with her independently for years. I should have said yes a long time ago. This isn't the time to chase pipe dreams, Sarah. We have bills to pay. His voice held an edge of panic now. I looked at him, really looked at him, and wondered how I'd missed the signs. The late nights, the unexplained expenses he'd always wave away when I asked, the gradual emotional distance. He wasn't just worried about our finances. He was worried that without my income, his carefully constructed double life would crumble. I'm aware of our bills, James. More aware than you might think. Something in my tone must have alarmed him because he stepped toward me, his expression shifting from dismissive to concerned. What does that mean? It means I'm taking responsibility for my future, something you accused me of not doing last night. I walked past him to the door. Don't wait up. I have several meetings today. I didn't have several meetings. I had one with Diane, which I'd scheduled via a frantic early morning email. But he didn't need to know that. Let him worry for a change. Diane met me at a cafe near her home in the suburbs. She looked exactly as I remembered, stylish, confident, and perpetually amused by the world around her. At 56, she was living proof that a woman's prime could come later in life. Sarah, when I got your email, I couldn't believe my luck, she said, hugging me tightly. Meridian's loss is my gain. I've been wanting to steal you away for years. We ordered coffee and I explained my situation. The layoff, not James's betrayal. That wound was still too fresh to share. So you're finally ready to go independent? Diane asked, stirring her latte. About damn time. Do you know how many authors I've heard complain that they can't get the Sarah Lawson treatment because you're exclusive to Meridian? I blinked in surprise. Really? Oh, honey. Diane shook her head. You have no idea how good you are, do you? You're the secret weapon. The editor-author's request by name. The one whose touch can transform a mediocre manuscript into a bestseller. For the first time since receiving my termination notice, I felt a flicker of hope. I need your help with my new series, Diane continued. Meridian's been assigning me to junior editors since you moved up to management, and the quality has suffered. I'm willing to pay your full rate, whatever it is. Just name your price. I'd come prepared with a number that seemed ambitious but fair. Now, with Diane's enthusiasm, I doubled it. Done, she said without hesitation when I told her my rate. And I know at least 5 other authors who would pay that or more. Do you have a business card yet? A website? I shook my head, feeling suddenly overwhelmed. I've been laid off for less than 24 hours, Diane. Well, let's fix that. She pulled out her phone. My son's a web designer. He can have something ready for you by tomorrow. Consider it done. And I'm hosting a literary salon next week. Half the publishing world will be there. You're coming as my guest. By the time our lunch ended, I had my first client, a promise of more, and a domain name for my new business, Lawson Literary Consulting. The irony that I was using James's last name for a venture he'd laughed at wasn't lost on me. But it wasn't about him anymore. It was about proving something to myself. On the drive home, I stopped at a small business center and registered my company, ordered business cards, and set up a dedicated bank account, separate from the joint accounts I shared with James. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of exhilaration. Not happiness. Exactly. The pain of James's betrayal was still too raw for that. But purpose. Direction. When I returned home, James was already there, pacing in the living room. He rarely came home before 7. It was barely 4. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "I've been calling for hours." I set my purse down calmly. "I told you I had meetings." With Diane Morrow. One meeting. That shouldn't have taken all day. I had other stops to make afterward. I didn't owe him an explanation, but I found I wanted to see his reaction. I registered my business today. Lawson Literary Consulting is officially real. James's face went through a rapid series of expressions: disbelief, anger, and finally, a patronizing smile that made me want to scream. "Sarah, be reasonable. A consulting business takes time to build. We don't have time. We need income now." "I signed my first client today," I replied. "A 6-month contract, paid monthly, starting next week." "How much?" he asked immediately, the calculation visible in his eyes. I told him, and watched his eyebrows shoot up in genuine surprise. "That's more than you were making at Meridian." "For one client, yes. And Diane says she knows others who would pay the same rate." For a moment, James looked impressed. Then his expression clouded. "This seems too good to be true. What's the catch?" The catch was that I should have done this years ago. The catch was that I'd let my loyalty to Meridian and to him hold me back. The catch was that it had taken his cruelty and betrayal to push me toward something better. "No catch," I said simply. "Just my expertise finally being valued properly." "Well," he said, suddenly all smiles and support, "this is fantastic news, honey. I knew you'd land on your feet. We should celebrate." The speed of his pivot made me dizzy. Last night I was dead weight. Today I was honey. The difference? The promise of money. More money than before, in fact. Money that could help cover not just our legitimate family expenses, but his secret credit cards as well. And in that moment, I made a decision. I would build this business. I would make it successful. And I would use that success to free myself from a marriage that I was suddenly seeing with painful clarity for the first time in 22 years. "Yes," I agreed, smiling back at him with a warmth I didn't feel. "We definitely should celebrate. But not tonight. I have a proposal to prepare for Diane. Rain check." "Of course," James said, visibly relieved that the financial crisis appeared to be averted. "Whatever you need to make this work, Sarah. I'm behind you 100%. 100% behind me now," I thought bitterly. Now that he saw me as useful again. Now that I represented not dead weight, but a financial lifeline. The irony was almost too much to bear. As I headed upstairs to continue working, I felt a strange sense of calm descend over me. James didn't know it yet, but he had done me a favor with his cruel words and his betrayal. He had set me free, free to discover my own value, both professionally and personally, free to build something that was entirely mine, and eventually free to leave him behind with the same callous disregard he had shown me. My business wasn't just a response to losing my job. It was my declaration of independence. And as I opened my laptop to begin work on Diane's proposal, I allowed myself a small, private smile. Dead weight? No. I was about to become the immovable force that would change everything. 3 months after being called dead weight by my husband, I sat in my new home office, staring at my business bank account in disbelief. The balance showed just over $42,000, all earned through my consulting work. What had started with 1 client had quickly grown to 7, each paying premium rates for my editorial expertise. Diane had been true to her word. Her literary salon had been a gold mine of connections. I'd walked in nervous and left with 4 new clients. Word was spreading that Sarah Lawson, formerly of Meridian Publishing, was now available for independent projects. Authors I'd worked with years ago were reaching out, excited to collaborate again, without corporate restrictions. "I told you so," Lena said, refilling our wine glasses. She'd come over to celebrate my latest client signing, a publishing house that wanted me to train their junior editors. "You should have done this years ago." "I know," I admitted, "but I wouldn't have had the courage if Meridian hadn't laid me off. Or if James hadn't been such a monumental ass," Lena added, her expression darkening. She'd never liked my husband, and recent events had only solidified her opinion. I sighed, swirling the wine in my glass. He certainly changed his tune now. And he had. In the weeks following my first contract with Diane, James had transformed from contemptuous to supportive. If you could call his particular brand of attention support. He'd started coming home earlier, bringing flowers, suggesting weekend getaways to help you relax from all your hard work, honey. I'd declined every invitation. I was too busy, I told him. The truth was I couldn't bear to pretend everything was normal when I knew about the secret credit cards, the unexplained hotel charges, the life he was leading that didn't include me. "Have you confronted him about the debt yet?" Lena asked as if reading my thoughts. I shook my head. "I'm waiting." "For what?" "The right moment." I didn't tell her about the private investigator I'd hired 2 weeks ago. Some suspicions were too painful to voice, even to my closest friend. "Well, don't wait too long," Lena warned. "You've got something good here, Sarah. Don't let him drag you down just when you're finally soaring." After she left, I returned to my office, unable to sleep despite the late hour. My new work energized me in a way my corporate job never had. For the first time in my career, I was setting my own hours, choosing my own projects, and being compensated based on my actual value rather than a salary scale determined by company policy. My phone buzzed with a text, a number I didn't recognize. "Report complete. Files in your email. Call to discuss findings." The private investigator. My hand trembled slightly as I opened my laptop and logged into my personal email account, not the one James knew about. There it was, an email with a large attachment. I clicked it open, and there they were. Dozens of photos of James with another woman, leaving restaurants, entering hotels, walking with their arms around each other in a park I recognized on the other side of the city. There were screenshots of text messages, records of gifts, and a detailed timeline stretching back 3 years. Her name was Vanessa Carter. She was 36, 13 years younger than me. She worked at James's firm as a junior financial advisor. In one photo, I could see the diamond bracelet I'd found on their credit card statement. It suited her slender wrist. I closed the laptop, feeling strangely calm. The confirmation of my suspicions should have devastated me, but instead it brought clarity. This marriage had been over long before I lost my job. James's dead weight comment hadn't been a momentary cruelty. It had been a glimpse of his true feelings. He'd been looking for an exit, a way to justify leaving me while preserving his self-image as the good guy. Instead, I would be the one to leave. But first, I had accounts to settle, literally. I spent the next week in a strange, dual existence. By day, I worked with my clients, built my business, and presented a facade of normalcy to James. By night, I strategized my exit. I consulted with a divorce attorney, secured copies of all our financial records, and began quietly moving my new earnings into accounts only I could access. The investigator's report had revealed something else valuable: leverage. James had been using company resources to facilitate his affair, taking his mistress to client dinners and billing them to the firm, using the company credit card for gifts. If his employers found out, his career would be over. I didn't plan to tell them. I wasn't cruel or vindictive by nature. But James didn't know that. And more importantly, he didn't know what I knew. 10 days after receiving the investigator's report, I was ready for the confrontation. I waited until Friday evening, when James came home carrying takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant and a bouquet of lilies. "I thought we could have a quiet dinner at home," he said, smiling with the easy charm that had once made my heart flutter. You've been working so hard lately. That sounds nice, I replied, helping him unpack the food. How was your day? The usual. Client meetings, portfolio reviews. He poured us each a glass of wine. Nothing as exciting as your success, though. Have I told you how proud I am of what you've accomplished? I accepted the glass he offered. Several times. It's quite a change from dead weight, isn't it? James winced. Sarah, I've apologized for that 1,000 times. It was a horrible thing to say. I was stressed about money and took it out on you. You know, I didn't mean it. Actually, I think that's the only honest thing you've said to me in years. His hand froze midway to his mouth. What? I reached into my bag and removed a manila folder, placing it on the table between us. I know about Vanessa James. His face drained of color. I don't know what you're. Please don't. I have photos, credit card statements, hotel receipts. I know about the bracelet, the weekend in Chicago, all of it. I know you've been having an affair for 3 years. James set his glass down carefully. His mind was visibly racing, calculating his best move. It was the same expression he wore when strategizing a difficult client negotiation. Sarah, I can explain. You don't need to. I understand perfectly. You've been unhappy and looking for an exit. When I lost my job, you thought you'd found it. But then I started making more money than before. And suddenly leaving wasn't so appealing anymore, was it? He stared at me, his confident facade crumbling. There's also the matter of the $87,000 in credit card debt you've been hiding, I continued. Quite a sum to explain in divorce proceedings. Divorce. The word came out strangled. Sarah, let's not be hasty. We can work through this. Couples therapy, a fresh start. I've already consulted a lawyer, I said calmly. But before we proceed with formal divorce filings, I have a proposition for you. James leaned forward, desperation replacing shock. Anything. Name it. I'll pay off your credit card debt. All of it. His eyebrows shot up in surprise. This was clearly not what he'd expected. Why would you do that? Because I want a clean break. No messy court battles, no public accusations, no career-ending revelations to your firm about how you've been misusing company funds to finance your affair. His face went from pale to ashen. You wouldn't. I don't want to, I clarified. That's the point. I'm offering you a way out that preserves your reputation and career. What's the catch? I smiled thinly. In exchange, you'll agree to my terms for the divorce. I keep my business, my earnings, and all future income it generates. You keep your retirement accounts and investments. We sell the house and split the proceeds. No alimony either way. But your business is taking off. Over time, it could be worth. Exactly, I cut him off. You called me dead weight, James. You were ready to discard me when I lost my job. You don't get to profit from what I've built from the ashes of that humiliation. He was silent for a long moment, calculating the financial implications against the cost to his reputation and career if I went public with what I knew. Do we have a deal? I pressed. Yes, he finally said, deflated. We have a deal. Over the next month, I paid off each of James's secret credit cards, watching my business account drain by $87,000. It was a steep price for freedom, but worth every penny. We listed our house, and to my surprise, it sold within 2 weeks. The divorce papers were signed without drama, the settlement reflecting exactly the terms I'd laid out. On our last day in the house, I found James in his empty office, looking lost among the bare walls where his diplomas and awards had hung. I never meant to hurt you, he said when he saw me. I did love you, Sarah, for a long time. But not enough, I replied, feeling more sad than angry now that the end was here. No, he admitted, not enough. And you deserved better. Yes, I did. Madison took the news of our divorce hard at first, but when I flew out to California to explain in person, she hugged me with unexpected fierceness. You don't need to tell me why, Mom, she said. I've seen how he treats you. I'm just glad you're finally putting yourself first. 6 months after James called me dead weight, I moved into a small but charming bungalow just 10 minutes from my old house. I converted the sunroom into a home office with large windows overlooking a garden that bloomed with colors I'd never had time to appreciate before. My business continued to grow. I hired an assistant, then a junior editor to help with the workload. Lawson Literary Consulting became Lawson Literary Partners. I changed my last name back to my maiden name, Campbell, but kept the business name as a reminder of how far I'd come. A year to the day after I lost my job at Meridian, I received an email from my former boss. Heard about your success. We made a mistake letting you go. Would you consider coming back? Director level, significant salary increase. I laughed out loud as I typed my response. Thank you for your interest, but I must decline. I'm not available for in-house positions at this time. However, if Meridian would like to engage Lawson Literary Partners for consulting services, my rates are attached. Best regards, Sarah Campbell. I hit send and leaned back in my chair, feeling a satisfaction deeper than any corporate promotion had ever given me. My phone rang. Diane Morrow's name flashed on the screen. Sarah, have you seen the New York Times bestseller list? We hit number 2. They're already talking about the film rights. That's incredible, Diane. Your best book yet. Our best book, she corrected. Your editorial guidance shaped it into what it is. The publisher agrees. They want you to lead a workshop for their editors next month. You name the fee. After we hung up, I walked through my house, marveling at the life I'd built from the ruins of what I'd lost. I sat on my porch swing, a housewarming gift to myself, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. My doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened it, Lena stood there holding a bottle of champagne. I had just heard from Madison that you turned down Meridian's offer to come back, she said, sweeping past me into the house. We're celebrating your official triumph over corporate America. She popped the cork in my kitchen and poured 2 glasses. To the woman who turned dead weight into wait and see, she toasted. I laughed and clinked my glass against hers. To second chances and new beginnings. Later, after Lena had gone, I sat in my garden with a final glass of champagne, reflecting on the strange path that had led me here. If James hadn't called me dead weight, would I have found the courage to strike out on my own? If Meridian hadn't discarded me, would I have discovered my true value in the marketplace? Sometimes the worst moments of our lives become the catalysts for the best ones. Sometimes it takes being stripped of everything to discover what you're truly made of. I had paid off James's debt, but the real cost had been paid long before. Years of putting his needs before mine, of accepting less than I deserved, of shrinking myself to fit into the space he allowed me. Never again. The debt that mattered most was the one I owed to myself. The promise to value my own worth, to trust my abilities, to never again accept being called dead weight by anyone, including the voice in my own head that had believed it even for a moment. The debt I was finally beginning to repay. And the interest it generated, confidence, independence, joy, was compounding daily. 3 days ago, I received a text from James. Vanessa had left him. Their relationship hadn't survived the scrutiny of being public. He was struggling financially after the divorce and wondering if I might consider loaning him some money until things turn around. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the text to Lena with a single laughing emoji. Her reply came instantly. The audacity! What are you going to do? I thought about it for a moment before typing back. Nothing. His problems aren't my dead weight to carry anymore. Then I set my phone aside and returned to my latest manuscript. There was work to be done, a business to grow, a life to live, one that was finally, wonderfully, completely my own.